Newborns don't come into the world without any organized pattern of behavior. They naturally learn to sleep, eat, get their caregiver's attention, and move. It's a common misconception that caregivers need to teach babies all these things. In reality, a newborn behavior is neither random nor disorganized. They have natural rhythms that create patterns of sleeping, wakefulness, eating, and movement. Additionally, newborns come equipped with many reflective responses to external stimuli and few organized behavior for exploring and interacting with their environment, such as looking, sucking, and crying. The way we sleep changes a lot as we grow. At 25-week gestation, a fetus spends almost all its time in active sleep. However, a newborn splits its sleep time equally between active and quiet sleep. By the time they reach 3 months, babies spend twice as much time in quiet sleep compared to active sleep. This trend continues into their second year with more time in quiet sleep and less in active sleep. During active sleep, babies move their eyes back and forth under their closed eyelids, just like adults do. This is why it's often called rapid eye movement REM sleep. The shift from mostly active REM sleep to mostly quiet sleep has led to a lot of curiosity about the role of REM sleep. In adults, REM sleep makes up to about 20% of total sleep time and is linked to dreaming. Researchers show that the high amount of REM sleep in early development acts like an internal motor, keeping nerve pathways active until the baby gets enough stimulation from the outside world. Interestingly, babies who stay awake longer, getting more external stimulation, tend to have shorter REM periods during sleep, supporting this idea. The way sleep states are organized, how distinct they are, and how much time is spent in each reflects brain development. This means that babies at risk, such as those born to alcoholic or drug-addicted mothers, tend to have less organized sleep patterns. Babies who show instability in their sleep states between 2 and 5 weeks of age are more likely to face medical and behavioral issues later on compared to those with more stable sleep patterns. Additionally, the sleep patterns in infancy have a direct impact on the future cognitive, motor, and social outcomes of preterm children. For instance, newborn at risk for SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, have longer gaps between REM sleep episodes. There is also a clear link between fewer and shorter REM sleep episodes and conditions like autism spectrum disorders or Down syndrome. Most children and adults have regular daily routines. They typically sleep at night, stay awake during the day, and eat at predictable times. This regular pattern is known as the circadian rhythm, which follows a roughly 24-hour cycle. The circadian rhythm starts developing in the womb and continues to evolve through life. Newborns have a sleep cycle that alternates between active and quiet sleep every 50 to 69 minutes. This sleep cycle is coordinated with periods of wakefulness that occur every 3 to 4 hours. By the time babies are 12 to 16 weeks old, they usually have a clear pattern of sleeping at night and being awake during the day, even though they still sleep about the same amount as they were newborns. However, between 10% and 46% of infants ages 6 to 18 months experience some type of sleep disturbance, such as bedtime fuzziness, difficulty falling asleep, or frequent and prolonged night awakenings. These infant sleep problems are linked to higher rates of maternal depression, increased alcohol and drug use in mothers, and poorer overall health in both parents. Newborns come with a set of reflexes. Some of these reflexes are very predictable and happen as quick responses to specific stimuli, while some reflexes last a lifetime. The ones we are most interested in disappear within the first year. This disappearance signals the development of more advanced brain functions. As the child grows, the development of the frontal lobe suppresses these early reflexes. However, if these reflexes reappear late in life, it could be due to certain neurological conditions, such as dementia, especially in rare diseases called frontotemporal degenerations, traumatic injuries, or strokes. The rooting reflex is one of the first to appear in newborns. If you gently stroke a newborn's cheek near the mouth, the baby will turn its head toward that side and start stitching with its mouth. This reflex is evolutionarily adaptive, helping the baby find the mother's nipple for feeding. It appears as early as 2 to 3 months of gestation age, showing that the fetus can respond to touch. Typically, the rooting reflex disappears in infants around 3 to 4 months of age. The palmar reflex is triggered by applying pressure to a newborn's palm, usually with a finger. The baby responds by tightly grasping the finger. This reflex allows newborns to support their own weight, an important ability for our evolutionary ancestors who needed to cling to their mothers as they moved around. The palmar reflex typically disappears around 3 to 4 months of age, and children won't be able to support their own weight again until they are about 4 to 5 years old. The motor reflex is a series of reactions to sudden sounds or the loss of head support. When triggered, the infant first pushes the arms outward, opens the hands, arches their back, and straightens the legs. Then they bring the arms inward into embracing motion, with fingers forming into fists. If the motor reflex is absent or doesn't disappear by 6 or 7 months of age, it can be a clear sign of brain damage. The reflex was first described by Morrow in 1918, who suggested it was an adaptive reaction by primates to grab for support while falling. The asymmetry of the motor reflex is definitely indicative of root, plexus, or nerve disease. Its absence during the neonatal period is a clear indication of birth injury or interference with brain formation. An exaggerated motor reflex is seen in infants with severe brain damage that occurs in utero or in infants withdrawing from narcotics. The persistence of the motor reflex beyond 6 months of age is exclusively observed in infants with severe neurological defects, including cerebral palsy. When pressure is applied to the soles of a baby's feet, they will move its legs up and down in what's known as the stepping reflex. This reflex usually disappears by around 3 months of age because the baby's weight increases faster than their muscle strength, making it harder for the muscles to support the weight. Practicing its reflex can help strengthen it. It's thought that this reflex helps a newborn crawl to the breast right after delivery when lying on their mother's abdomen. The symmetrical tonic neck reflex develops around 6 to 9 months of age and should disappear by around 12 months. The symmetric tonic neck reflex is commonly referred to as the crawling reflex because it allows baby to make the transition from laying down to getting up on their hands and knees. If this reflex persists beyond 2 to 3 years, it can lead to various physical and neurological developmental delays. The asymmetrical tonic neck reflex is triggered by turning a child's head to one side. The normal response is an increase in muscle tone on the side the head is facing and a decrease on the opposite side. This reflex is a part of the development muscle tone coordinated one-side movements and proper hand-eye coordination. It appears at around 1 month of age and typically disappears by 4 months. The asymmetrical tonic neck reflex is more commonly seen in premature infants than in full-term babies. If this reflex is still present after 6 months, It may indicate developmental delays such as cerebral palsy. It can also reappear in adults who have experienced traumatic brain injuries. The Babinski reflex tests the integrity of corticospinal tract, which is a neural pathway from the brain to the spinal cord that helps control movements. When the sole of the foot is stroked from heel to toe, the toes will fan out and curl upward in response. This reflex is normal in children up to 2 years of age but is usually replaced by the plantar reflex by 12 months. The Babinski reflex is absent in infants with defects of the lower spine. The Babkin reflex is an interesting and important reflex that starts to appear around 9 weeks before birth and usually fades away by the time a baby is about 4 months old. This reflex involves the baby flexing and rotating the head while opening the mouth when pressure is applied to the palms of both hands. This reflex plays a crucial role in breastfeeding because it helps stimulate the breast for milk flow. If the Babkin reflex is absent, it might indicate some depression in the central nervous system. However, it's important to note that not having this reflex isn't always a cause. There are several reflexes that are evident in newborn and continue into adulthood. For example, the blink reflex, the sneeze reflex, the yawn reflex, the cough reflex, and the gag reflex are all present from birth and remain throughout lives. Not all early behaviors are responses to stimulation. Newborns also initiate and are capable of maintaining activities over an extended period of time. These activities are known as congenitally organized behaviors, which are gradually refined by the infant to more effectively explore and control the physical and social environment. Newborns demonstrate that they possess the capacity to act on their surroundings rather than merely reacting. Sucking, for example, can seem like a reflex because it's easily elicited by oral stimulation, especially when the newborn is hungry. This is evident in behaviors like the breast crawl, where infants move towards the breast shortly after birth. However, sucking is not entirely reflex-like. Babies may suck spontaneously without any stimulation, and the act of sucking is not stereotyped but adapts to various conditions. Sucking is also sensitive to sensory events and is used by babies as a coping mechanism against stress. Wolf identifies 3 types of cries in very young infants: a hungry or basic cry, a mad or angry cry, and a pain cry. The first 2 are similar in pitch but differ in that mad cry forces more air through the vocal cords, producing more variation. The pain cry has more sudden onset with a much longer initial burst and a longer period of breath holding between cries. These different cries are not signals but rather indicators of the baby's behavior state. Parents and adults can often distinguish between different cries based on intensity and are more likely to respond as the cry becomes more intense. Infants born with brain damage prematurely or who show signs of malnutrition often have abnormal crying patterns. Infants with genetic abnormalities, such as Cri-du-Chat syndrome, where the infant's cry sounds like that of a cat, or Down syndrome, have atypical cries. Cries of at-risk babies are perceived as more grating, piercing, and aversive than those of other babies. There is a clear association between excessive infant crying and a twofold increased risk of overall problem behavior, conduct problems, hyperactivity, and mood problems at the age of 5 to 6 years. The acquisition of motor skills is a key feature of human-infant development, providing the baby with powerful tools for acquiring knowledge and gaining a sense of competence and self-control. As the children grow, these motor skills continue to evolve and play a significant role in other areas of their development. Motor development can be divided into 2 main categories: The first is postural development and locomotion, which involves controlling the trunk and coordinating the arms and legs to move. The second category is grasping, which is the ability to use the hands for activities like eating, building, and exploring. The progression of motor skills in infants generally follows two main principles. The first principle is the proximodistal direction, meaning that development starts from the center of the body and moves outward. A good example of this is acquisition of early grasping skills. In the first few weeks, an infant can position itself towards an object but cannot reach it. Although the arm movements may seem random, some are directed toward the object. By the second month, the infant moves the hand closer to the object more deliberately and begins to make contact with it more consistently. The second principle is cephalocaudal direction, which means that control of the body develops from head to toe. The development of early postural and locomotor skills illustrates this principle. 0 months. Infants turn their heads to the side when lying on their stomachs, but have poor head control when lifted. They make alternating leg movements as if crawling. 3 months. Babies can hold their heads erect and stable when held vertically. When lying on their stomach, they lift the head and shoulders using the arms, hands, or elbows. They can sit with support and anticipate adjustment when being lifted. 6 months. Infants can temporarily sit alone and pull themselves into a sitting position with the help of an adult hand. They can roll from their back to the stomach. 9 months. Babies can sit alone and pull themselves into a sitting position in a crib. They make forward progress in a prone position toward a toy and can walk while holding onto furniture. 12 months. Infants can stand alone and pull themselves from standing to a sitting position. They can walk with assistance and have perfected crawling. 15 months. Toddlers walk very well and rarely fall. They can climb stairs or a chair. 24 months. Children can walk up and down stairs, walk backward and run. Prehension and manipulative skills. 0 months. Babies start with a reflex grasp like holding onto a ring. 3 months they can grasp a rattle and hold objects with both hands. 6 months babies can grasp a cube while holding onto fingers, reach with one hand, turn and twist their wrist, and transfer a cube between hands. 9 months they develop a pincer grasp using their thumb and fingers to pick up a small object like pellets. 12 months. At this stage, they can hold a crayon and make marks on paper. 18 months. Toddlers can throw balls into a box, scribble vigorously, and build towers of 3 or more blocks. 24 months. They can place a square into a foam board, imitate folding paper, stack towers of 6 blocks, and line up blocks into form a train. The dynamic systems approach, originally developed in the field of physics, has been extensively applied to children's motor development by Esther Thelin. Thelin suggests that both nature, biological factor, and nurture, environmental factor, play crucial roles in the development of motor skills. The predictable sequence in which most babies develop motor skill indicates a strong biological influence. Practice and experience also affect motor skills development. For instance, African infants typically sit, stand, and walk earlier than North American infants, highlighting the role of environmental factors. According to Thalin's dynamic system analysis, the key element that integrates nature and nurture and stimulates the development of motor skills is the infant's task or goal. As babies grow biologically and cognitively, they become motivated to achieve more in their environment. They strive to reach, grasp, move, and interact with objects around them. Sometimes a task requires a behavior that the child has not yet developed. In such cases, the infant must create a new behavior by adding up on their existing physical responses and abilities, such as muscle strength, balance, and coordination. These abilities depend on both age and previous experience. For example, a 9-month-old has more physical responses and abilities to draw from that 4-month-old, leading to different approaches to the same. Talent identified two stages in the development of new motor behaviors. Exploration. The baby tries various responses in a random and uncoordinated manner. Selection. The baby learns what works and what doesn't, fine-tuning their responses in an efficient package.